Hello YouTube and welcome back to the channel outside the target demographic. Today I'm going to be showing off another piece of EDC gear that everyone should have, and that is my wristwatch. Let's get started. This is my Seiko Sport 5, model number SNK805. So what I like about this watch is this was one of my first ventures into automatic watches. So this does not have a battery. It does not require battery changes. You can see the heart beating right here. And it's just a series of gears, cogs, and springs that have been cut to such a exacting tolerance that this will keep time on your wrist in a just a little bit less than a ½ inch thick piece of machinery that is neither heavy nor large and fits on your wrist. Tells you not only what time it is, but the fact that it is also Saturday the 27th. So it has a date and day window on it. Another feature I like, it has a crown that typically they're going to be at the 3 o'clock position. This one is sitting at the 4 o'clock position. The idea behind that is when it's on your wrist, if you're moving your hand around a lot, if the crown were at the 3 o'clock, it's going to be digging into you and causing irritations. This one being at 4 o'clock makes it not only less likely to do that, but when I need to wind the watch, it's going to be sitting at a little bit better of an angle to get to it. So I do like that. Seiko, I believe, is the ones who came up with, or at least celebrate that feature in most of their watches. I do like the green. Green is my favorite color. I find that the face is very easy to read. A lot of watches are gaudy to me. I'm a function over fashion kind of guy. So if I can quickly see the face and be able to determine the time, that's really all I'm looking for in a watch whose purpose is to tell me the time. I don't need chronographs. I don't need time zone indicators. I don't need any of that stuff. I need the time. So this is very simple, easy to read, very legible. It does glow in the dark. I will show you that here shortly. It is waterproof, and you have a 40-hour power reservoir. So what that means is there is a coil spring in here. Every time that you move your wrist or reach for an item or are walking and your arms are swinging by the side of you, this weight mechanism will swing around and it will wind up the watch. It will refill that power reservoir. So it will add water to the water tower. And when you do not have rains, you'll still have water. When you are not moving, if you take this off and you rotate out your watches, this one will run for just shy of 2 days without adding any more motion to it or doing what they call the Seiko shake. When I originally purchased this watch about 4 years ago, it was a deal at $80 on Amazon. There are battery-powered watches that you cannot get less than $100. So the fact that this was $80, it was automatic. It's a 38 millimeter face with no battery replacements, no solar circuitry to go bad or require you putting in the sun or any of that stuff. A time-honored tradition of a mechanically driven watch was a good steal of a deal. Unfortunately, in the last 4 years, with the virus of unknown origin and Biden inflation, they're now running for about $200. Honestly, for $200, I don't know that I can tell you that it would be worth it. That's something for you to measure out. But I will tell you, this has not been an impeccable watch. Probably within 6 months after purchasing it, the mechanism failed and the watch no longer worked. So Amazon allowed me to do a return. The second watch lasted for about 1.5 years and then failed as well. So the original movement in here is the Seiko 7S26. And that's basically all the internals, all the guts here. It's a proven mechanism. It's not the most reliable, as the internet pointed out, and I can confirm personally. So what I did is, since this was one of my first ventures into automatic watches, this was also one of my first ventures into customizing watches. On eBay, I picked up a Seiko NH36 movement for $30. And I was able to figure out how to open up the casing. Basically, this guy just rotates off with a tool going into those lugs. I was able to remove the crown, remove the hands and face, drop in a new mechanism. Basically, I'm replacing the engine in the same car. Rebuilt it, learned how it worked along the way, and now this watch has been running very well. Another benefit to the Seiko NH36 movements is it is hackable. So hackable means you can see the second hand is moving. When I pull the crown out, the second hand stops. So I have hacked the watch and locked up the entire movement. That allows me to sync up the time if I'm going too fast. I can wait until the atomic clock on my phone tells me that we're at 18 seconds, click it in, and the watch will start ticking again. Another benefit is if I have a series of watches that I'm rotating out for everyday carry, if I pull this guy out, that mechanism is not spinning, that power reserve is not being used. You do lose the time, which is kind of the whole benefit of having the power reserve, but it is something you can do. Another thing with the upgraded NH36 movement is it's more reliable, as I said. You have the hacking. You also have the hand winding. So the original 7S26 movement relied solely on the movement of the watch to wind it. With this one, I can manually hand wind the crown in a clockwise rotation, and I am recharging that power reserve. So I now have two ways to make sure that this guy is still ticking. So that was the first mod I did on this guy. The second one I did is a simple mod that anyone can do and probably should do on their watches. All it takes is a Sharpie of whatever color you prefer and the tool to open up the back. So what I did was, we're going to use, this is my S11 flashlight. I cannot sing its praises enough. One of its settings is the UV light setting. What this does is very quickly light up the lume. So you can see that it is a glow-in-the-dark watch. It's got like a radioactive haunting lume to it instead of like a backlit LED lume, which I really like. What the more keenly aware of you will notice, that is the grandfather clock, everyone should have one, is my noon position is not glowing. So I call this the noon index. The stock lume was applied to all 12 positions on the clock. The problem with that is when I'm in the dark, I could look at my wrist and I could kind of guess at which one of these is noon or the top position. The problem with that is telling time is based on that orientation, that index. So if I'm looking here, then I'm going to be off by, an hour. By having a dead noon or a noon index on this guy, I can clearly tell the one that isn't lit is my noon position. And that allows me to more accurately determine that it is currently 11:46-ish. More relevant at night than at noon. What I did, is that lume glows kind of a greenish iridescent color. when it's in daylight, you can't really see that it's green. What you're going to see is it is a silver color. So when I had this disassembled anyways, I went ahead and covered up the noon index with the silver Sharpie. The benefit of that is, again, when it is glowing, I have a index for which one is my noon position. And during the day, I can't tell that I've done anything to this watch because the Sharpie is essentially the same color as the rest of my lume indicators. So it is no cost during the day and of benefit at night. Simple enough to do. You can use any color pin that you need to, depending on the watch that you have, or you can try your hand at, I was going to try filling in that triangle, but I don't have lume, and even if I did, it would probably turn out poorly. So there were two different options available. One was to add a thing, and the other one was to remove a thing. My second tip, for those of you who are looking to do an upgrade or replace the movement, again, I went from a 7S26 to a NH36 movement. The one that came in the mail came with a crown that was uncut. Now what that means is the crown was about this long. I needed it to be about that long. So I had to do some precision cutting in order to make sure that I lopped off enough where the movement would operate based on controlling the crown. And I needed to make it not too short and that the crown is no longer engaging with what it needs to. So what I did is I made this long enough where it sticks out a little bit more prominently than it usually would. If we look here, we have a noticeable gap between the chassis and the back face of the crown. I could have kept cutting it. That's maybe a 1/16 of an inch, a 32nd of an inch. I left that uncut because now that crown sits a little more proud. What that allows me to do is, again, this new upgraded NH36 movement allows me the ability to hand wind. I'd had to essentially grab that crown with just fingernails in order to wind it. Now that it sits out a little bit more prominently, I can get a much better bite, or I can just roll my finger along it to wind up the mech. So those are the two mods I've done to my watch. Depending on the ones that you guys choose to carry, they may be of service to you. And that's my overview of my Seiko Sport 5 SNK805 Custom with the upgrades that I've done. So again, what I like is the SNK80 series. You can get them in beige, blue, black, and of course green. The bands will match the face color. You can replace these bands. I believe they are a 20mm band, so you can replace them with NATO straps or a steel bracelet, whatever you're interested in. But the design, low profile, low weight, 40-hour mechanism, glow in the dark, day date, waterproof, hand windable. It's a beauty of a watch, and I've relied on it for 4 years so far. So as always, I appreciate you guys stopping by. Any questions, comments, concerns you have, go ahead and leave them in the comments section below. And for those of you who have tried smartwatches or have a watch that has sentimental value to you, go ahead and leave them in the comments section below as well, and tell me how you found it and why it is that you rely on it so much. As always, this is outside the target demographic. I appreciate you guys stopping by, and I will catch you in the next video.